Hi guys, welcome back. So October was quite a busy reading month for me. One of the first books I finished in October was one I actually started in September. It was The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. I really enjoyed actually reading the text. I mean, I've seen the movie. It's just an epic adventure of heroism and having to destroy this ring that rules them all. It was just a really, really great story, and what more can you say about it? If you don't know about this story, you've been hiding under a rock. I also participated in Dewey's 24-hour readathon, during which I read a whole stack of manga. I read Tokyo Undead, the complete collection, the first volume of Black Butler, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, this is a standalone book, Bakuman Volume 1, and Corpse Party Volume 1. Now, those last two manga that I read, I also went ahead and continued with the second volumes of each of those, both Bakuman Volume 2 and Corpse Party Volume 2. Now, Bakuman is about two young men that are trying to become this manga creating duo, and it goes into the whole aspects of the industry of what it takes to create a manga series, and it's an okay series so far. I mean, I like the artwork and everything, but there's not a whole lot of depth to the story. Overall, I gave this one 4 stars. With regards to Corpse Party, the second volume, I think this volume ramps up the story even more. It is a horror manga about some kids that are trapped kind of in an interdimensional situation of an old school that used to sit on the grounds of where their current school is. An earthquake took place, they fell through like a hole and into another dimension. They're trapped down there, they can't escape, and there are ghosts of some of these students that were murdered in the old school kind of coming back and attacking them and stuff. And creeping factor kind of ramps up in this one, and if you were kind of unsure about it after the first volume, I suggest you go and pick up the second volume. It gets even better. I gave this one 5 stars. The audiobook I listened to this month was The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. Now, I've read at least one book from each of the 3 sisters. I would have to say, unequivocally, this was my favorite of all 3. With Jane Eyre, I never understood the relationship between Jane Eyre and Rochester. It just seemed kind of far-fetched to me. He wasn't a likable man. He was rarely around during the whole book, and suddenly she's just like, you know, so madly and passionately in love with him. It just seemed kind of ridiculous. And with Wuthering Heights, none of the characters were very likable. But with Tenant of Wildfell Hall, I just really got captivated by the entire story of this young woman. She moves into Wildfell Hall, a place that's been kind of unoccupied for quite some time, and the whole townsfolk are kind of curious about this woman. Dressed in black, they assume that she is a widow. She has a young boy with her, who she really keeps tight, watch over him. They say her apron strings are a little too tight, and she should loosen them and let the boy be a little bit more free. But she's very, very protective of him. The whole townsfolk are kind of intrigued by this woman. What is her background? She doesn't want to... There goes the phone. Sorry about that. Anyway, she does not talk about her background. The story is split in a dual narrative. It begins with a man named Gilbert, who's one of the townsfolk. He's instantly sort of captivated by this woman and wants to know more about her. He begins to kind of fall for her, but she keeps pushing him back. She does not want to build any kind of a relationship with him, and sometimes she will threaten to leave if he does not step back. Eventually, the townsfolk start chatting, and rumors start flying, and he gets kind of jealous, and eventually her story comes out in the form of a switched narrative now, where he is reading from like a diary and notes and things that she had taken. And she has now allowed him to see. So we find out her background story, and it is the tale of a woman trapped in a miserable marriage with an alcoholic who starts to kind of almost turn her son against her, and she does not want to see her son become the man that his father is. And it is just such a really beautifully told story, very captivating, and I can't wait to read more by Anne Bronte. I gave that one 5 stars. Moving on, I read quite a few short stories. One of them was The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. This contains many other stories within this book, described as one of the most terrifying stories ever written in this century. Horrible, superbly contrived, nights of unrest if you read it. And I was curious about it. It's only 12 pages long. How scary could this be? And I'll have to say, her writing has a way of setting an underlying unease to the reader, whether it's because of the characters in We Have Always Lived in the Castle. You don't know about those characters, something happened back then. You're always at a sense of unease through her stories, and that's how I kind of felt with this one. There's a village, there's a lottery that takes place every year. You don't quite know throughout the story what this lottery is, what its purpose is. In fact, I don't think you ever really realize what the purpose is of it. But you do find out, and I pretty much guessed before the end of the short story what was going to happen. But it did give me that sense of unease as the story built and the ultimate conclusion to it, but it wasn't the most horrifying thing I've ever read. So I'm not going to give it a rating because it's just a short story. But I am curious to read some of the other ones within here. I say there are even from hilarious to the truly horrible. I am curious to see what her hilarious writing would be like. Through the month of October, I also kind of kept diving in and out of the complete poems and tales of Edgar Allan Poe. I read The Raven every year, my favorite poem, absolutely loved it. My main goal was to read The Fall of the House of Usher, which again is only like about 15 pages long. It deals with the Usher family, and there are the twins Roderick and Madeline. And this particular story is told by an unnamed narrator. He's the friend of Roderick who has asked him to come to the home to help lift his spirits. He just can't get under this, doom and gloom that he's feeling, and his friend is concerned about him and goes to the house. The mood is instantly set by Poe as he's describing the house. Just the words he uses: a dull, dark, and soundless day in the autumn of the year. The clouds hung oppressively low in the heavens. A melancholy house of Usher. I looked upon the scene before me, upon the mere house, and the simple landscape features of the domain, upon the bleak walls, upon the vacant eye-like windows. Poe's immediately giving the house a sense of sentience. You feel it is alive and very oppressive. There's an iciness, a sinking, a sickening of the heart as he looks upon this house. Dreariness of thought. Instantly you are put in that feeling with this unknown narrator. The one thing with his stories, though, they do have a rather abrupt ending, just as things are sort of coming to a conclusion, and you're left wondering what just happened. I think it's sort of left up to the reader to decide certain aspects of the story, and I don't want to go into it without ruining, because it is a rather short story, but it's in the situation with Roderick and the feelings he's having. He's also at a sense of loss because of the imminent demise of his sister. His sister has been deathly ill, and he knows he's fearing that future and just fearing fear in general. But it's just those abrupt endings that just kind of get you. Again, I'm not going to go ahead and rate a short story overall, but I really did enjoy it. I read that one with anticipation of reading a follow-up to it, which was The Fall by Bethany Griffin. Now, this is a retelling of that short story, and it goes much more in depth. I have some notes I've kind of taken about it. What I liked about this particular book is the first-person perspective of Madeline. We never even hear from her, and we barely see her in the short story. So this particular book is told entirely from her point of view, which is it gives a whole other aspect to that story. The opening chapter with Madeline waking up in a coffin was chilling and instantly set that scene of a creepy horror type book that you're in. There's unsettling nature to the story created by Poe about an unknown curse and everything, and that curse is constantly mentioned within this book, and how it pervades through the Usher family. The story is sort of told in a non-linear format, which is unusual compared to the other story. This one spans the ages of Madeline and Roderick from the age of 9 through, it was 18, yes. I did definitely like the switch in the narration. I loved finding out more about Madeline and the aspects of the curse. Again, within this book, the house is, it's a character, it's alive. You definitely get that sense of sentience within this, even more so than in the short story. Each generation of Ushers has sort of built upon this house, and it's grown to enormous proportions. It's like a giant maze inside, which, as children, Roderick and Madeline both love to kind of explore, and it just makes the house even more intriguing. What was interesting, too, about the house is Madeline's perspective of it. When she's young, she feels kind of protected by it, shielded by it. But as she gets older, it kind of shifts from suddenly feeling like it's an oppressor or a captor, like she can't escape this house. Now, some of the things that I didn't like about this book, nothing really happens through most of it. And that may sound weird, but I think it's the constant reminder to the reader that there's a curse, that she's ill, that her mother's ill, she suffers from these extreme painful headaches, her father sort of seems to be losing his sanity. This has happened before with other members of the Usher family, with her father's twin sister, who was, I don't want to go into detail, but, you know, literally other members of the Usher family. This is definitely a curse. We know about the curse. We're constantly hammered. There's a curse. But not a whole lot more happens. The mother, concerned about this curse, ends up sending Roderick away to school. Well, what about Madeline? Don't care about the daughter? She seems kind of mean towards the daughter, but yes, she's concerned enough to send the boy away to try and protect him from this curse. I found Madeline to be kind of a weak-willed character. She makes a lot of kind of dumb decisions throughout the book that kind of annoyed me. One of those decisions was when a young woman by the name of Emily comes to visit the house, and she's already, Madeline's already kind of formulating a plan to maybe try to get away from the house and maybe destroy the house, and she gives Emily some of her family jewels and stuff so she'll have some kind of money to live off of. This is a virtual stranger to her, and you've just given away some of your fortune to this person. I mean, it seems a bit crazy to do something along that lines, but that was another situation I didn't quite like about the book. There's also some inconsistencies as well, and for here I'm going to refer to my notes. If there's a curse within the Usher family, wouldn't it run through the male line, the Usher line? Yet it seems to affect the mother as well. I don't understand that. It should affect both children, yet Madeline seems to be the one mostly affected. Maybe it's because they sent Roderick away, I don't know. Another one is within chapter 36, when Madeline and Roderick are both 16. She claims that she doesn't remember what happened to their father. He was there one minute, gone the next. And then Roderick begins to describe like the scenes from the funeral, and she's confused. She says, well, wait, that was Mother's funeral. So we're already at that point know when they're 16, both the mother and the father are dead. But yet, on chapter 118, when they're 18, 2 years later from that conversation, Roderick says, he comes back from school and he says he's not returning to school, that he is in disgrace, that a certain instance happened at school which was misinterpreted, and the school is sending a letter to their parents. But 2 years ago their parents died, according to the book. So that didn't quite make some sense. Also living within the house are these doctors. There's at first 2 doctors and later a 3rd doctor joins. And they're there to look after the mother because she has these spells where she has these severe headaches and things, again, something to do with the curse. They also run tests on Madeline. So they're constantly in the house, and she does not like it. She begins to dislike the doctors more and more, and feels like they are also helping keep her trapped there as well as the house, you know. And what I understand is if by chapter 118, when they're 18 years old, the parents are dead, why are the doctors still there then? Why hasn't she just sent them away? It had such potential. It built so much, like I said, on the Madeline character and that other aspect to the story that we didn't get to see in Poe's short story. It really set a great atmosphere to it, really chilling. It had a great opening scene, like I said, with her in the coffin. It also has a similar ending, I have to say, to Poe's story. We sort of, instead of having an unnamed narrator, the friend of Roderick, we do have that same character here. He does have a name. His name is Noah. And we see how the story kind of ends, but again, it is rather abrupt, and there's an unknown aspect to the ending. You're left kind of questioning. So it does have a lot of great potential to it, but I think it could have done with a little bit of editing and thin it out a little bit more while it felt a little repetitive. I think that was the main thing. But I definitely enjoyed it. That's my wrap up for October. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've read any of these, let me know what you thought down below, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.